Adam Sandler hasn't made many sequels in his career, but he has recently expressed interest in making Happy Gilmore 2. While not exactly sure what the sequel would be about, the comedy actor pondered, "Wouldn't that be fun to do the senior tour of Happy Gilmore, and hang out with all those guys and try to write a great script about Happy as an older guy, and having to calm down his temper and all that stuff?" Sandler has so many beloved characters that Happy is just one of many that fans want to see the actor reprise. Whether it's an afterlife-based comedy, an indie darling drama, or one of the most panned movies of all time, Redditors want tons of Sandler legacy sequels. Big Nicky afterlife-based comedies like Beetlejuice make up a rare and niche subgenre, but when they're pulled off well, they can be wonderfully unique, mixing gothic aesthetics and hilarious surrealism. And even though it was critically slammed when it was first released in 2000, Little Nicky is a perfect example of that and has gained a huge cult following in the time since. Smithmite wants to see a sequel that's creatively titled Big Nicky. Big Nicky actually has a ton of potential, as the end of the original film sees Nicky have a son, Zachariah, who has demonic powers. And just like how Jack was the MVP of Incredibles 2, Zachariah could be an adorable little devil who can't control his powers. Punch Drunk Love. The second 2002's Punch Drunk Love was the first major example of Sandler taking a more dramatic role following his comedy movie reign in the late 90s and early 2000s. It was a shocking turn for the actor, and critics were pleasantly surprised, as the movie even won awards at prestigious film festivals, including Cannes. Sandler plays Barry, a down-on-his-luck loner with passive-aggressive tendencies, but he has a happily ever after ending with audiences assuming that he spends the rest of his life with Lena. Nevertheless, No Cartographer 4822 still wants to see a sequel to the movie. While that might not work entirely, it'd be great to see visionary director Paul Thomas Anderson and Sandler collaborate on another film, as they complemented each other so well. 50 First Dates 2. This user has an interesting but morbid take on a sequel to 50 First Dates. The Redditor pitches 50 First Dates 2 could even be his next serious role, as trying to explain to Drew Barrymore for the 50,000th time that she has memory loss, is 20 years older than she thinks she is, and has however many kids could be a genuinely great Shakespearean tragedy. The premise is exceptionally dark, especially considering it'd be a sequel to a light-hearted romantic comedy, but that's way more interesting than simply repeating the premise of the original. Adam Sandler has surprised critics with dramatic roles in the past, whether it's the dramedy Punch Drunk Love or the anxiety-inducing crime drama Uncut Gems. And it'd be interesting to see if the actor could put a traumatic spin on one of his existing comedy characters. Billy Madison 2. Billy Madison was the first movie that featured Sandler in the main role, and like many Sandler movies, it gained more recognition over time and is now considered one of the actor's best. One Redditor wants to see Billy Madison 2 and adds that the sequel should take place in college. The Redditor misspells college, but that could be intentional given that Billy Madison is about a grown man who is terrible at writing and reading and has to repeat school. It'd make for a great title, Billy Madison 2, in collage. Though that might be a little too similar to Dumb and Dumber 2, a legacy sequel that most audiences don't want to be reminded of. Happy Gilmore 2. Platinum Canikas has a ridiculous idea for a Happy Gilmore 2, but if there was a sequel, it would absolutely be the concept the studio would go with. The Redditor pitches, his son's house is being auctioned and he hasn't played golf in almost 20 years. Shooter McGavin is still around. He fights Drew Carey. The idea is exactly the same premise as the original film, only instead of Happy's grandmother losing the house, it's his son. While so many legacy sequels retell the same story as the original, effectively making them requels, Happy Gilmore is Adam Sandler's most rewatchable movie, so making a requel could be the right move for the hypothetical follow-up. Bigger Daddy Frogger wants to see a sequel to 1999's Big Daddy, titled Bigger Daddy, adding, "He's a grandpa now." It'd be a stretch for another movie to follow Sonny, Sandler, to repeat the same mistakes he already learned from 20 years earlier, but there are other ways a sequel could work. It could follow Julian, who is now going through the same problems that Sonny was over 20 years ago. The movie featured some of Sandler's best visual gags ever, such as covering anything that's spilled, whether it's milk or urine, with used newspaper. And Sonny also taught Julian some of the worst habits anybody could ever teach a child, so it could be hilarious seeing Julian pass down those habits to his own son. The Wedding Singer 2 Snuggins 350 wants to see The Wedding Singer 2, commenting, "The Wedding Singer should have a 90s set sequel, or early O." Robbie Hart is one of Adam Sandler's most likable characters, and of all the actor's performances, fans want to see Robbie back the most. Sandler still clearly has a passion for writing music, as much of his 2018 Netflix special, 100% Fresh, was music-based. If Sandler has another album's worth of comedy songs, The Wedding Singer 2 could be the perfect vessel for them, killing two birds with one stone. And as fans would love to see Sandler and Drew Barrymore reunite for a fourth collaboration, there's no better option than The Wedding Singer 2. Mr. Deeds 2 2002 saw the two sides of Sandler, as not only did the year see the release of the magnificent drama Punch Drunk Love, but it also saw the release of the over-the-top slapstick comedy Mr. Deeds. The movie is about an average Joe who inherits billions of dollars and follows him blowing the money in ridiculous ways. Frittles thinks Mr. Deeds 2 could be great. The first movie was as closed-ended as it could have possibly been, as Deeds buys everyone in his small-town red Corvettes before giving away the rest of the money to his butler, Emilio, John Turturro. However, a sequel could follow Emilio and depict what he decided to do with his billions. Jack and Jill 2. Despite having proven how great of an actor he is, Sandler always ends up in bad movies, and his very worst movie might be Jack and Jill, which sees him play both titular characters. The movie has an abysmal 3.3 on IMDb and 3% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's one that critics aren't going to change their minds about any time soon. Nevertheless, Joker Faces 2 wants a Jack and Jill 2, and thinks it should be even more ridiculous. The Redditor suggests, Jack and Jill 2, they have a long-lost third sibling played by Chris Rock. Rock is a frequent collaborator of Sandler's, and he's been dragged into some of the actor's worst movies, such as Grown Ups 2 and The Weekend, but nothing could be worse than Jack and Jill 2. You don't mess with the Zohan 2 when debating which Sandler sequels should be developed. The Artistic Vibe exclaims, you don't mess with the Zohan 2. The original You Don't Mess with the Zohan had a high concept and was the most action-packed Sandler movie ever, but it also had the most outrageous comedy. The movie is about a superhuman counter-terrorist with a dream of opening a hair salon in America. As Zohan achieves his goal, a sequel would simply be about him running his hair salon, but it's easy to imagine that something from his past could force him back into his former assassin role. as he takes on a new alias as a hairdresser in the original movie. The sequel could be called You Don't Mess with Scrappy Coco.